Welcome to the Mystery and Horror channel. Get ready for dark stories that will give you chills. Before we start, don't forget to leave your like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay tuned for every new mystery. Now turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and let's dive into terror. Story 1. The Winchester Mansion, USA. The Winchester Mansion, located in San Jose, California, is one of the most mysterious and intriguing houses in the world. Its story begins with Sarah Winchester, the widow of William Wirt Winchester, heir to the fortune made from the famous Winchester Rifle Company. After the death of her husband and their only daughter, Sarah was devastated and sought the help of a medium to understand the reason for so much tragedy in her life. It was in this encounter that the legend began. The medium told Sarah that her family was cursed by the spirits of those killed by Winchester rifles and that her only chance to appease these souls was to build a house, but never stop its construction. The continuous building would serve to confuse the vengeful spirits. With this, Sarah purchased a farm in San Jose and began construction of the mansion in 1886. The house grew chaotically without any logical architectural plan. Sarah believed that the spirits would haunt her if she stopped building, so she hired teams of workers who worked day and night, adding rooms, hallways, and bizarre details to the property. The construction lasted 38 years, until Sarah's death in 1922. The result is a true labyrinth. The mansion has 160 rooms, 40 staircases, many of which lead nowhere, 2,000 doors, some of which open into solid walls or lead to fatal falls, 10,000 windows, and countless secret passages. The staircases and doors that have no exit were supposedly designed to confuse the spirits, while ornamental details and the repeated use of numbers in the decor, such as the number 13, considered significant by Sarah, reflect her interest in the occult. The mansion is not just an odd architectural landmark but also the epicenter of numerous paranormal stories. Many believe the house is still haunted, not only by Sarah Winchester but also by the spirits of those who died by Winchester rifles. Accounts include hearing footsteps in empty hallways, doors that slam shut by themselves, and inexplicable whispers. The room where Sarah died is considered the most active part of the mansion. Employees and visitors report feeling an oppressive presence there, as if they were being watched. One of the most famous accounts is from a carpenter who worked on the house and claimed to have seen the figure of a woman dressed in black, believed to be Sarah, wandering the hallways. He followed her for a moment, but she disappeared into a solid wall. Other visitors report seeing shadows moving along the stairs or hearing the sound of hammers, as if the ghostly workers were still building. In addition to the paranormal phenomena, the mansion's atmosphere itself is enough to give anyone chills. With narrow corridors, rooms without windows, and secret passages, it's easy to feel lost and vulnerable. Some visitors report sudden temperature changes or a sensation of disorientation, as if the house were trying to confuse them. Today, the Winchester Mansion is a popular tourist attraction, drawing both the curious and ghost hunters. Special events, such as night tours and Halloween parties, further reinforce its reputation as one of the most haunted houses in the world. However, even during the day, the mansion maintains its air of mystery. Many believe that Sarah still wanders the halls, tending to her unfinished work and making sure the spirits do not disturb her again. If you visit the Winchester Mansion, the advice is clear. Stay with the group and don't venture alone. The house was designed to deceive, not just the spirits but the living as well. It is said that those who get lost in the hallways may feel Sarah's presence or the presence of other spirits, and that on some occasions, doors that should be open remain inexplicably locked, as if the house has a will of its own. The Winchester Mansion is not just a monument to grief and obsession, but also a chilling reminder that some stories never end. After all, as long as the house remains standing, its legend and mysteries will continue to grow. Story 2. The Amityville House, USA. The house in Amityville, New York, is one of the most infamous and controversial residences in American history. Located at 112 Ocean Avenue, the house was built in 1924 and would have been just another charming suburban home if not for a series of macabre events that made it an icon of terror. On November 13, 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr., then 23 years old, brutally murdered his parents and 4 siblings while they slept. The bodies were found in their beds, positioned face down, with no signs of struggle or attempted escape. Ronald claimed to have heard voices urging him to commit the murders. This horrific crime would have been enough to make the house infamous, but the real mystery began a year later when the Lutz family moved into the house. George and Kathy Lutz, along with their 3 children, moved in on December 18, 1975, but left in a panic just 28 days later, claiming that the house was overtaken by malevolent forces. The events they reported during their brief stay inspired books, movies, and decades of debates about the truth of the occurrences. According to the Lutzes, disturbing phenomena began almost immediately after they settled in. George, for example, would wake up every night at 3:15 a.m., the exact time the murders occurred. They reported an inexplicable smell of sulfur, black stains appearing on walls and furniture, and doors that would open and close by themselves. Kathy claimed to have felt an invisible presence touching her and, on one occasion, saw a spectral figure of a woman in old-fashioned clothing. The Lutz children also experienced terrifying events. The most famous case involved their youngest daughter, Missy, who claimed to have befriended a spirit called Jody. This spirit was described as a pig-like creature with glowing and terrifying eyes that Missy claimed to see outside her bedroom window. George and Kathy also reported seeing Jody's glowing eyes in the darkness of the backyard. The house seemed to have an oppressive atmosphere. George reported spending entire days sitting near the fireplace, feeling cold and sick, even though the house's heating was working perfectly. Kathy had vivid nightmares about the murders and would wake up with inexplicable scratch marks on her body. In one particularly horrifying incident, the family discovered a secret room in the basement, painted red and not included in the house's floor plan. They believed the room was a focal point for the malevolent forces. Additionally, crucifixes hanging around the house were found turned upside down, and a green slime began to ooze from the walls with no explanation. The climax came one night when the family heard a chorus of voices and loud noises, as if something invisible was trying to drive them out. They fled the house that same night, leaving all their belongings behind. After the Lutzes moved out, paranormal investigators and clergy were called to examine the house. The famous demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren visited the location and claimed to feel a powerful demonic presence. One of the photos taken by the investigators revealed what appeared to be the face of a child looking out of one of the rooms, although no one was in the house at the time. Despite the Lutzes' claims, the truth of their accounts has been intensely debated. Some believe they fabricated the story for profit, as the rights to their story were sold for books and films. However, other families that lived in the house after the Lutzes reported strange sensations, though no event as extreme has been documented again. Today, the Amityville house continues to attract curious visitors, paranormal investigators, and horror story enthusiasts. Although the address has been changed and the house's facade altered to discourage visits, its fame remains unshaken. For many, it is a symbol of the power of the supernatural, while for others, it is a reminder of how real tragedies can fuel terrifying legends. If you visit Amityville, the house will likely seem quiet and peaceful, but for those who believe in the Lutz story, the forces that inhabit it are still there, waiting. After all, as they say, spirits never truly leave the place where they died. And in the Amityville house, that means the darkness remains even decades later. Story 3. Monte Cristo Homestead, Australia. Hidden in the small town of Junee in New South Wales, Australia, the Monte Cristo Homestead is considered the most haunted house in the country. Built in 1885 by Christopher and Elizabeth Crawley, this Victorian mansion was a symbol of wealth and status, but it also became the setting for dark tragedies that have marked its history. Today, the house is a landmark for those seeking paranormal experiences, with countless reports of inexplicable activities echoing the tragedies of the past. Christopher Crawley was a successful landowner who built his fortune through agriculture. He and his wife, Elizabeth, lived in the mansion with their 7 children, maintaining an opulent lifestyle. However, the house also housed servants and workers who lived under much less glamorous conditions. Many tragedies occurred during the years the Crawley family occupied the house, creating a history that haunts the site to this day. One of the most well-known tragedies involves a maid who allegedly fell from the mansion's balcony and died. It is believed she was pushed, but her death was officially considered an accident. Another story speaks of a nanny who accidentally dropped a baby down the main staircase, causing its death. The mansion stairs are now one of the points where visitors report feeling a heavy presence, as if the echo of the accident still lingers there. Additionally, there is the story of a worker named Harold, who was kept in inhumane conditions in a small room at the back of the property. Harold, who suffered from mental health issues, was chained by the Crawleys in a shed for years until he was found dead, his body in deplorable condition. The room where Harold was confined is another place where visitors report sightings of shadows, sounds of chains, and feelings of anguish. After the death of Christopher Crawley in 1910 from a sudden infection, his wife, Elizabeth, became even more reclusive. She turned the mansion into a sanctuary, rarely leaving the house. It is said that she was extremely devout, praying for hours in an improvised chapel within the house. Elizabeth passed away in 1933, and many believe her spirit never left the property. Reports of a female figure dressed in black walking through the hallways are common, and visitors often feel an inexplicable floral scent that is believed to be associated with her. The house fell into disrepair after Elizabeth's death until it was purchased in the 1960s by Olive and Reginald Ryan, who restored the property and opened it to the public. Since then, reports of paranormal activity have only increased. The Ryans report hearing footsteps on the stairs when no one was around, doors opening and closing by themselves, and objects mysteriously disappearing. One of the most haunted areas is the main hall, where visitors claim to feel sudden temperature changes and hear whispering voices. Photographs taken at the location often show orbs of light or shadowy figures. Some tourists claim to feel pressure on their backs as they climb the stairs, as if something invisible is pushing them. Additionally, Harold's apparitions are frequently reported in the small room where he was kept prisoner. Many say they hear sounds of chains and low moans, while others report seeing a thin and emaciated male figure in the window, staring out with sad eyes. Today, the Monte Cristo Homestead is a popular tourist destination for ghost hunters and the curious. Nighttime events such as ghost tours and seance sessions are held regularly, attracting visitors who wish to experience the supernatural firsthand. Despite the renovations, the house still maintains an air of mystery, and many believe the energies of the past are deeply rooted in its walls. If you decide to visit the Monte Cristo Homestead, be prepared to feel a constant presence around you. Many report leaving the mansion with a sense of emotional weight, as if the spirits that inhabit the location are trying to connect with the living. It is said that if you hear whispers or feel light touches while exploring the house, it is best to leave quickly, as the spirits may not only be watching, but trying to interact. Story 4, Borley Rectory, England. Located in the village of Borley, Essex, England, Borley Rectory was built in 1862 by Reverend Henry Dawson Ellis Bull to house his family and serve as the local rectory. However, from the beginning, the property was shrouded in mystery, earning the reputation of the most haunted house in England. Its ghost stories, tragedies, and unexplained events have made it an iconic place of the supernatural. The oldest legend associated with the site dates back to the 14th century, when a monastery was supposedly located on the grounds. It is said that a nun had an affair with a monk, and when they were discovered, they suffered a tragic fate. The monk was executed, and the nun was buried alive within the walls of the monastery. Centuries later, it is believed that her spirit continued to wander where Borley Rectory would later be built. Soon after the rectory was completed, locals began reporting sightings of a female figure dressed in a black habit, walking through the gardens. The Bull family often saw the ghostly nun from their window or while walking around the grounds. While her presence was calm, other phenomena began to emerge, including inexplicable footsteps, whispers, and objects moving on their own. One of the Bull children, Harry, who later became the rector, reported that the apparitions were so frequent that he built a special observation tower to watch the nun. In 1928, Reverend Guy Smith and his wife moved into the rectory, bringing with them new supernatural stories. During a cleaning in the basement, they discovered the skull of a young woman, which reinforced the stories that the site was linked to violent deaths. From that point on, the phenomena intensified. Sounds of bells ringing by themselves, doors slamming with no wind, and lights flickering at night became common events. It was during the tenure of Reverend Lionel Foister and his wife, Mary Ann, in 1930, that Borley Rectory reached its peak of paranormal activity. Mary Ann reported being physically attacked, such as being shoved, scratched, and even thrown out of bed by an invisible force. Furthermore, disturbing messages began to appear on the walls, allegedly written by spirits. One of the most famous messages read, "Please help me to get out." It was during this time that Harry Price, a famous paranormal investigator, was called in to document the events. He spent years investigating the site and wrote extensively about the phenomena. Price reported witnessing levitating objects, sudden temperature changes, and screams echoing through the corridors. He also conducted seances at the rectory, during which mediums claimed to communicate with the spirit of the nun and other entities that haunted the site. In 1939, a fire destroyed much of Borley Rectory. Although the flames consumed the physical structure, the paranormal activity did not cease. The ruins became a meeting point for curious visitors and investigators, who continued to report sightings of shadows and hearing voices whispering their names. One of the most disturbing stories involves a journalist who visited the site after the fire. He reported feeling an oppressive presence and briefly saw the figure of a woman in old-fashioned clothing looking at him from the ruins. As he approached, the figure disappeared, leaving only a floral scent in the air. Later, he discovered that many people had reported seeing the same apparition over the years. Although Borley Rectory was demolished in 1944, the site where it stood is still considered a hotbed of supernatural activity. People passing by the area report feeling inexplicable chills, hearing bells in the distance, and even seeing the figure of the nun wandering among the trees. Many believe that the spirits trapped on the land were not released, continuing their unsettling presence. Today, the story of Borley Rectory remains a landmark for paranormal enthusiasts and a reminder that some places never truly free themselves from their past. Those who visit the site or explore the surroundings frequently report a sense of being watched. It is said that if you get too close, you may feel the cold touch of invisible hands, as if the spirits are trying to warn you to stay away. Although the house itself no longer exists, the stories and mysteries of Borley Rectory remain alive, perpetuating its reputation as one of the most haunted places in history. For those who believe in the supernatural, the land where the rectory once stood still holds echoes of a dark past, where the voices of the dead continue to whisper, waiting to be heard. Story 5. Lemp Mansion, USA. Located in the heart of St. Louis, Missouri, the Lemp Mansion is a majestic property that once symbolized luxury and power, but is now known as one of the most haunted places in the United States. Built in 1868, the mansion was home to the Lemp family, owners of one of the most successful breweries of the time. However, the Lemp family's fortune and glory were overshadowed by devastating tragedies, which gave rise to dark legends and reports of paranormal activity. The haunting story of the Lemp Mansion begins with the family itself. Adam Lemp, patriarch of the dynasty, founded the Western Brewery in 1838 and quickly built an empire based on the production of craft beer. His son, William Lemp, expanded the business, becoming one of the most influential figures in St. Louis. However, over time, tragedies began to strike the family. In 1901, Frederick Lemp, William's favorite son and heir to the brewery, unexpectedly died at the age of 28, allegedly due to heart failure. His death devastated William, who never recovered emotionally. In 1904, tormented by the loss of his son and the pressure to maintain the family empire, William took his own life in his office inside the mansion. This was the first of a series of suicides that would mark the house's history. Control of the brewery passed to William's eldest son, but the family continued to face misfortunes. With the advent of Prohibition in the United States, the Western Brewery declined, and the family's fortune began to disintegrate. In 1920, Elsa Lemp, William's daughter, committed suicide in her St. Louis home. A few years later, other family members, including Charles and Edwin Lemp, also died under mysterious circumstances, with Charles being found dead in one of the mansion's rooms after a self-inflicted gunshot. Today, it is believed that the restless spirits of the Lemp family still roam the mansion. Visitors and staff report sightings of shadowy figures, inexplicable sounds, and a heavy atmosphere that permeates the rooms. The office where William took his own life is considered one of the most active locations in the house. Many people say they feel an oppressive presence and hear footsteps when they are alone in the space. One of the most well-known stories involves a room in the mansion's attic, known as the Monkey Room. It is said that one of William's sons, nicknamed the Hidden Son, was kept locked in this room due to a congenital condition. Reports of children's laughter, sounds of something hitting the walls, and sightings of a small, pale figure in the attic are frequent. This spirit is often referred to as the Little Lemp. In the restaurant that operates in the mansion today, employees report that objects move on their own, lights flicker inexplicably, and voices are heard when no one is around. One of the most frightening reports involves glasses shattering for no apparent reason, often after someone mentions one of the Lemp family's names. The dining room, where the family used to hold formal meetings, is also a hot spot for paranormal activity, with witnesses reporting seeing silhouettes sitting at the table or hearing murmured conversations. Additionally, the mansion's basement is another well-known location for supernatural activity. It was used as a beer storage area during the brewery's glory years, but now it is associated with sounds of bottles clinking and an inexplicable feeling of being watched. Many visitors report feeling chills as they descend the stairs, as if entering a space that shouldn't be disturbed. Although the Lemp Mansion now operates as a restaurant and lodging, it maintains a mysterious atmosphere that attracts both the curious and ghost hunters. Special events such as mystery-themed dinners and ghost tours are regularly held, but even skeptics who attend these events leave with inexplicable stories to tell. The Lemp Mansion is a grim reminder that no amount of wealth or success can protect someone from life's tragedies. For many, the house is more than just a historical building. It is a portal to the past, where the voices and pains of the Lemp family still echo. If you decide to visit, be prepared to feel more than just history. Be prepared to feel the presence of those who never left the mansion. Story 6. Myrtles Plantation, USA. The Myrtles Plantation, located in St. Francisville, Louisiana, is known for its stunning architecture and is also considered one of the most haunted houses in the United States. With a history marked by tragedies and mysteries, the plantation blends the elegance of colonial style with an unsettling atmosphere that attracts both tourists and paranormal investigators. The story begins in the 18th century when the land where the house was built was a thriving plantation. However, what many don't know is that this place carries the echoes of a series of deaths and inexplicable events that continue to haunt the property to this day. The most famous legend of Myrtles Plantation involves a slave named Chloe, who, according to reports, was in love with the master of the house, William Winter. In an attempt to please him, Chloe began to hear rumors that William was having an affair with his wife, Sarah. Desperate and trying to earn William's trust, Chloe decided to do something to get his attention. She allegedly poisoned a cake that was served to Sarah and her children, hoping they would fall asleep so that she could be noticed. Unfortunately, her action resulted in the death of Sarah and one of her daughters. It is said that, horrified by the consequences of her act, Chloe was caught and executed by the other slaves, being hanged from one of the large oak trees on the property. Since then, Chloe has been seen as the spirit who wanders the mansion, seeking redemption for her tragic mistake. According to the stories, she is frequently seen in the house, especially wearing a green dress, and seems to move through the house with a somber expression, as if eternally regretting her betrayal. Other stories haunt the location, including reports of children disappearing or hearing voices whispering. Many claim to hear a woman singing at night or see her wandering through the walls, as if trapped in an endless cycle of regret. But Chloe's spirit is not the only one that haunts the property. There are also the souls of Sarah and her children, who allegedly return to the house in search of rest. In addition to Chloe's apparitions, there is a famous legend about a mirror in the mansion. It is said that this mirror is cursed, reflecting not real images but the souls of the dead. Photographs taken in the mirror often capture ghostly figures that were not physically present at the time. Visitors also report that when they approach the mirror, a sudden intense chill fills the room, as if they are being watched by invisible eyes. Reports of paranormal activity at Myrtles Plantation are numerous and varied. Visitors who explore the mansion often feel an invisible presence accompanying them or hear inexplicable noises, such as footsteps or doors slamming. In the garden where Chloe was hanged, it is possible to feel a tightness in the chest and hear soft sighs and cries. On some nights, those who venture to the site claim to see a female figure in a green dress moving between the trees, disappearing before they can approach. The mansion and its surrounding grounds continue to be a popular tourist destination for those seeking a paranormal experience. Guided tours are held both during the day and at night, and many ghost hunters visit Myrtles Plantation in search of evidence of supernatural activity. Video cameras and other recording equipment often capture inexplicable images, such as lights moving on their own, shadows that seem to move in the distance, or even voices whispering unintelligible words. Myrtles Plantation, with its tragic history, is more than just an old house in the southern United States. It is a place where the souls of the dead continue to wander, waiting for redemption or eternal rest. It is said that the mansion will never be free from the spirits that inhabit it. For those who venture to explore the site, the experience is undoubtedly unforgettable, leaving the impression that some houses, with all their charm and beauty, carry with them a dark weight that never fades. If you decide to visit Myrtles Plantation, be prepared for a heavy atmosphere, full of stories and mysteries that defy reason. Many who have crossed its gates claim to never forget the sensation of being watched, and some even claim to have felt the presence of the souls that continue to wander there, searching for something they will never find: peace. Story 7, Villisca Axe Murder House, USA. In Villisca, a small town in Iowa, USA, the Moore family home became synonymous with mystery and horror. In 1912, 8 people, including 6 children, were brutally murdered with an axe inside their own home. The case remains unsolved to this day, but the house, now a popular destination for ghost hunters, holds the memories of a horrific crime, and many believe the spirits of the dead still haunt its walls. On the night of June 9, 1912, the Moore family, Josiah, his wife Sarah, and their 4 children, had 2 friends of their daughters staying over. They lived in a simple but cozy wooden house in the town of Villisca. By the next morning, everyone was dead. The killer used an axe to attack the victims while they slept. The heads of all the victims were crushed, except for one of the girls, who was struck with a blow to her back. The killer then cleaned his hands on the sheets and left the axe at the crime scene before disappearing without a trace. The investigation into the crime led to no arrests, and several theories about the identity of the murderer emerged. The most persistent theory suggested that the killer had a personal motive, but no one was officially charged. For decades, the case remained a mystery, but what became clear was that the house was marked by such an intense tragedy that many believed the spirits of the victims still haunt the location. The house was sold several times over the years, but the claims of paranormal activity never ceased. Many owners reported feeling an invisible presence or seeing shadows in the windows. The most common phenomenon is hearing footsteps and noises coming from upstairs, where the children slept at the time of the murders. Visitors to the house, especially at night, reported feeling a pressure on their chest and the sensation of being watched, as if the victims were still there, trapped in an eternity of suffering. The strangest reports come from ghost hunters who visited the Villisca Axe Murder House. During one of their investigations, a team of paranormal researchers recorded a series of ghostly voices during an EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, session. They captured the sound of a child calling for her mother and a male voice that seemed to say, "He's here." The atmosphere of the house, especially in the room where the children slept, is described as dense and filled with deep sadness. On other occasions, visitors claim to have seen invisible figures of children running through the hallways or rocking in empty chairs. Some photos taken inside the house show orbs of light floating around certain spots, especially near the beds where the victims were found. The owners of the house and tourists also reported hearing the sound of an axe being struck against wood, as if the killer were still there reliving the crime. One of the most terrifying stories involves a man who, during a visit to the house, got locked in the basement for hours. He was using a recorder, trying to capture sounds of paranormal activity. When the investigators finally opened the door, they found him pale and trembling, saying he heard someone whispering in his ear, "Leave now or you'll be next." He never returned. The Villisca Axe Murder House is now open for visits and night tours, attracting those who seek to witness the paranormal in action. With each visit, new reports of strange phenomena continue to arise, keeping the mystery and tragedy of the past very much alive in the popular imagination. They say that if you visit the house, especially at night, the feeling of discomfort will be inevitable. The rooms, with their outdated decor and antique furniture, have an oppressive quality, as if the house is preserving the last memories of a night of terror. Many visitors report that when they walk away from the house, they look back and swear they see shadows moving in the windows, as if the victims are still there, waiting for someone who can finally make sense of what happened. If you venture to Villisca and decide to enter the house, remember, what happened on that night in 1912 is more than just a simple crime story. It is a tragedy that left deep scars, and perhaps some of those scars still remain in the house, waiting to be discovered. Story 8, Whaley House, USA. In downtown San Diego, California, stands the imposing Whaley House, a mansion built in 1857 that, at first glance, may seem like a charming historical residence. However, for those who know its history, Whaley House is more than just a tourist attraction. It is a place where the tragic and dark past of the Whaley family still haunts its corridors. The history of Whaley House begins with Thomas Whaley, a prosperous merchant who built the house to serve both as a residence and as the headquarters for his business. The house was designed to be one of the most elegant in the region, with Victorian-style architecture and a large garden. However, soon after the family moved into their new home, inexplicable events began to occur. Strange sounds, ghostly figures, and a sense of unease began to mark the house's history, leading many to believe the place was cursed. One of the earliest tragedies associated with the Whaley house occurred in 1852, years before the house was built. In a nearby area, a man named James "Yankee Jim" Robinson was hanged for crimes of robbery and murder. The man was executed on a tree branch near the future site of the Whaley house. Reports indicate that he was hanged in a very violent manner, and his soul never rested after death. For many, Robinson's presence seems to have lingered in the area, and his spirit, according to some testimonies, is still one of the most frequently observed at Whaley House. Construction of the house began shortly after the execution, and many believe that Robinson's spirit was the first to haunt the residence. Workers and visitors have reported the sensation of being watched or hearing heavy, dark footsteps with an overwhelming presence in the rooms where the Whaley family used to gather. Apparently, Yankee Jim wasn't alone. Over the years, other souls began to make Whaley House their home. In addition to Robinson, the Whaley family also lived through tragedies that left negative energies imprinted on the house. In 1885, Anna Whaley, Thomas's wife, died of natural causes, but not without making a final request, that the house be preserved. Over time, more deaths occurred within the family. The couple's daughter, Violet, was the most notable. She struggled with depression and overwhelming sadness. In 1885, Violet committed suicide in the house, shooting herself in the head. Some believe her tormented soul still haunts Whaley House, with many people reporting seeing a sad woman walking through the house's halls. In 1912, Whaley House was converted into a vaudeville theater, but the change in use didn't bring peace. Reports of whispering voices, flickering lights, and inexplicable objects moving became increasingly frequent. People who visited the house afterward claimed to have heard laughter and applause coming from the upper floor, where the theater was located. But the most terrifying aspect was the fact that the house's palm trees, said to be spiritual lives, were connected to the souls of Violet and other Whaley family members. The most famous paranormal phenomenon at Whaley House, however, is the appearance of Thomas Whaley himself, the family patriarch. He is described as a tall and elegant man with a serious expression. Many people who have visited the house and even staff have reported seeing a figure in a dark suit and hat, standing near the window or in the hallway, watching them as if guarding the memory of his family. What impresses the most is the sensation of an invisible touch, as if he were asking that no one forget what happened there. Today, Whaley House is one of the most sought-after places by ghost hunters and history enthusiasts in San Diego. The house, now a museum, offers guided tours that explore its history and mysteries. For those seeking a spine-tingling experience, the night tours are the most popular. Reports of voices that don't belong to any living being, doors slamming shut on their own, and the feeling that someone is always by your side watching you are common among visitors. Additionally, ghost hunters have documented appearances in photos and videos, including orbs of light that cannot be explained by any technical malfunctions. During an investigation, a medium claimed to feel the presence of several figures, including Violet, who allegedly approached him asking for help to rest in peace. But for others, the energy of the house is more intense, and the feeling of being followed is constant. Whaley House is more than just a haunted house. It is a place where the pain and tragedy of the past still reverberate through the walls. The spirits of the Whaleys and others who crossed their path still inhabit the property, creating a unique atmosphere of mystery and horror. If you visit the house, expect to feel something beyond the written history, something deeper, as if you are touching the past in a way few can comprehend. Story 9. Chaonei Number 81 Palace, China. In the heart of Beijing, China, there stands a historic building shrouded in mystery and hauntings. The Chaonei Number 81 Palace, also known as the Chaonei Haunted House, has one of the most terrifying and lesser-known stories among haunted houses in the world. Its origin dates back to the Qing dynasty, when the palace was built to house the elite of Beijing. Apparently, this magnificent building, with its imposing and sophisticated architecture, hides dark secrets that continue to make it a place of fear to this day. The legend surrounding Chaonei Palace begins with a tragedy involving a woman named Ling Li was married to a wealthy and influential man, but after being abandoned by him, she took her own life within the palace. Some reports indicate that she hanged herself in one of the main rooms, but what truly instilled terror was the fact that, shortly after her death, the place was overtaken by a disturbing energy. Her spirit never found peace, and it is said that Chaonei Palace became a cursed place, where the tormented souls of other victims are also trapped. Although not widely known outside of China, the story of the house spread quickly among the locals, and the reputation of the place as a meeting point for spirits and ghosts grew over the years. Those who dared approach the palace or enter its doors often encountered inexplicable phenomena, such as doors closing by themselves, distant laughter, and an overwhelming feeling of being watched. Those who ventured inside the house said that as they crossed the threshold, a wave of intense cold enveloped them, as if an invisible presence were observing them. Chaonei Number 81 Palace has also been the setting for other dark tales, including mysterious disappearances and cases of possession. Many people who visited the property reported feeling a tightness in their chest, as though the air was being sucked from their lungs. Others heard a woman crying softly at night, coming from one of the rooms. These sounds were so constant that they began to be associated with the figure of Li, the woman who, it is said, never left the palace. Investigations carried out by ghost hunters and mediums began to reveal more details about the malevolent energy that inhabits the palace. During one of the investigations, a team of paranormal experts used equipment to capture EVP, electronic voice phenomena, and recorded a series of disturbing messages. Among the screams and whispers that echoed throughout the palace, a female voice could be heard saying, "Help me get out." During the investigation, some team members reported feeling an overwhelming weight on their shoulders and necks, as though something were trying to dominate them. In addition to Li's presence, the palace seems to harbor other ghostly figures, many of whom have no clear identity. Reports of shadowy figures with indistinct appearances floating through the hallways or watching visitors from a distance are common. Some locals claim that if you stay too long near the palace, you might begin to hear whispers and footsteps behind you, even when no one is around. They say this is a sign that Li's spirit is approaching, searching for something or someone to relieve her torment. Another mystery surrounding Chaonei Number 81 Palace is its history of renovations and changing ownership. For decades, the building stood abandoned, but many who passed by noticed that, although the place was in ruins, its doors and windows seemed to open and close frequently, as if the building were somehow alive. In 2000, the building was restored and reopened as a cultural center, but this did not lessen the presence of the disturbing energy. Many visitors claim that upon entering the old rooms and hallways, the sensation of being watched becomes oppressive, and an inexplicable chill surrounds them. Chaonei No. 81 Palace is not just a historic building. It is a place where time seems to have stopped, where the spirits of the dead still wait for a chance to find peace. For the curious and adventurous, it remains a frightening destination, full of unresolved mysteries and a constant atmosphere of terror. Those who dare to pass by, even during the day, speak of an immediate feeling of discomfort, as if something is lurking, waiting for you to finally see what is hidden in the shadows. They say that if you visit the palace at night, or if you feel drawn to its mystery, you must be prepared for what may happen. The voices that echo through the walls and the invisible presences that approach are a reminder that sometimes the dead do not rest. And for some, this means that Chaonei No. 81 Palace will never truly be empty. Story 10. The Perron Family House, USA. In Harrisville, Rhode Island, USA, the Perron family house is famous not only for its colonial architecture and beauty but also for being one of the most terrifying places in the world, serving as the inspiration for the movie The Conjuring. Since the moment the Perron family moved in 1971, their lives were never the same. What began as the purchase of an isolated farmhouse turned into a nightmare that, for many, has never left the place. The house became the site of a series of intense paranormal events that continue to be discussed to this day. The Perron family, consisting of Roger, Carolyn, and their 5 daughters, moved into the old property, excited for a new life in the countryside. The house was large and beautiful, with plenty of space for their daughters, but little did they know, the place was far from the paradise they imagined. Shortly after moving in, they began to notice strange occurrences. The first sign of something unusual came when the youngest daughter, April, made a peculiar discovery. She found a box hidden behind a wall in the house. Inside the box were old objects and amulets, but the strangest part was the unsettling feeling she had when touching them. As days passed, the phenomena began to intensify. The house seemed to be in a constant state of agitation. Carolyn, the mother, was one of the first to feel a strange presence. She reported seeing a shadow moving through the hallways, something that felt more like the sensation of being watched rather than just a mere vision. The daughters also began to report terrifying events. Furniture moved by itself, doors opened and closed with no explanation, and at night, they heard heavy footsteps on the second floor where no one was. One of the most frightening stories involves the oldest daughter, Andrea, who began to see a female figure in her dreams. The woman appeared sad and seemed to be trying to communicate with her. Over time, the manifestations became more aggressive. Carolyn began to be touched by invisible hands, and she, along with her daughters, started to hear strange laughter during the night. The presence intensified, and Carolyn began to have vivid and terrifying nightmares, often waking up with unexplained scratches on her body and feeling an oppressive energy in the air. As the events grew more intense, the family sought the help of mediums and paranormal investigators. Their story soon reached the renowned demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren. When the Warrens arrived at the house, they immediately sensed the presence of a powerful malignant force. During the investigation, Ed stated that the house was possessed by a demonic spirit. According to him, the spirit was an entity named Bathsheba Sherman, a woman who lived in the house in the 19th century. Bathsheba Sherman was a woman who, according to local rumors, was accused of witchcraft and had a life marked by tragedy. She was known to be extremely religious and harsh with her family, but her daughter died under mysterious circumstances. Many believe that Bathsheba, as a vengeful spirit, cursed the house and its property. During a seance conducted by the Warrens, Bathsheba's presence was identified, and Carolyn, the mother, became possessed by the entity. She began to speak in a deep, demonic voice, causing the family and investigators to panic. The Warrens performed an exorcism in the house, but the effects of the supernatural event did not completely disappear. After the intervention, the family began to live more peacefully, but the marks left by the experience were profound. The house, which had become the center of attention after the events, was sold and since then continued to be visited by paranormal investigators and curious onlookers. The Perron family house continues to be a place of mystery. Locals and visitors report feeling an inexplicable presence and sightings of shadows or figures around the property. During a recent visit, a medium said he felt a strong pressure on his chest when entering the house, as if being watched from all angles. The events at the Perron house also fueled further fascination with supernatural stories, especially after the success of the film The Conjuring, which dramatizes the events experienced by the family. Many who visit the house today report hearing whispers, seeing doors closing by themselves, and even feeling invisible hands touching their backs. The Perron family house is not just a place where a family lived a supernatural nightmare, it is a symbol of how the forces from beyond can impact the lives of innocent people. Even decades after the events, the spirits haunting the property seem to remain present. The legacy of the house stands as a warning about the forces that can inhabit places with violent or tragic histories. If you decide to visit the Perron house, prepare for an intense experience. Although the house has been restored, its ancient ghosts still seem to be present, waiting for you to find them. And if you're lucky or unlucky, you may even feel an invisible touch or hear a whisper in your ear. A reminder that for some houses, time does not erase the evil that dwells within. If you made it this far, the mystery has hooked you. So, leave your like, subscribe, and hit the bell to follow each new story. Thanks for watching and see you in the next terror.